A singer known for his Wagnerian roles is our next artist, Ben Heppner. Here he is with Walter's prize song from Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg.
Good evening. I'm Joe's wife, Jean. This is a very emotional night for us. Both Joe and I are feeling happy, sad, proud, a little relieved. but most of all, grateful for our wonderful years here at the Metropolitan Opera. To all the Met family on both sides of the curtain, we can only say, with all our love, thank you. I'd like to share with you a portrait created by filmmakers Peter Rosen and Sarah Lucanson. You all know the Met Joe has made. Here is a glimpse of the man the Met has made. Thank you.
I had only expected to spend a very short time here. There was one aspect of the Met that I wanted to learn about, and that was building scenery, because I planned to open my own shop. And in fact, what happened was that I never got out. Why didn't I get out? Because what happens when you come to the Metropolitan Opera, you're bitten by something that causes you to be so very much a part of this.
My first impression of him was that he's a young guy that knows what he's doing. And he's turned out to be an old guy that knows what he's doing.
He protects the interests of the Met, and he does it with a heart and with a conviction, and if needed, with power.
Most of the time, Joe was in the theater and was on stage before we were, and he knew what was happening because he's the hands-on person in everything.
His Italian heritage is a flamboyant and a theatrical one. That's certainly part of his personality, one to love the theater, one to love the hustle and bustle and the noise of it. It was his grandmother Cavallaro that loved opera. He was the only grandchild that was invited to keep her company while she listened to Cavalleria on her '78 records.
And my job was to get up and turn it over. And I had to sit there, and then just as it was getting to, she kind of looked at me, and I jump at attention and do what I was supposed to do. So that was my first contact with opera.
He was always in the mischief, always on the move.
He always liked to do things and build things and blow things up. When he was a kid, he used to do these science experiments in my grandmother's basement and almost blew the house up. He has always had, and still has, a tremendous aptitude for building things, understanding how things go together, don't go together. The concepts associated with building scenery were very comfortable and easy for him.
He knows everything about this building. He knows where all the nook and crannies are in the building. If there's a problem with the pipe system, he knows exactly where the problems are.
He doesn't postpone decisions. He doesn't try to hide. He meets everything head on, and he knows what the hell's going on around here.
He wants to know what it's like to go in and play an opera for 5 hours, what it's like to concentrate like that. He really wants to understand what this is.
I started in the old house in 1964 as an apprentice in the carpenter shop.
He was called over from the shop to go to the old Met and repair something underneath the set. Rehearsal was in progress, and it happened to be Turandot with Birgit Nilsson and Corelli. And he said, well, could we stay and listen a little longer? When they had heard some of the rest of the second act, Joe did turn to the other stagehand and said, well, maybe there is more to this opera stuff than building scenery. From that moment, he fell in love with opera.
I was in Anthony and Cleopatra. We had a minor catastrophe of the stage breaking down. Zeffirelli was just frantic because rehearsal couldn't go on.
The show had a Sphinx in the middle of the set. And every time it turned, there were steel clouds. They were supposed to go up to allow the Sphinx to turn.
And all of the pipes that were to look like clouds were fouling as they were pulled up.
And Joe said, let's start cutting them.
So with really no authority, actually we were still at that point an apprentice, said take this one out, take that one out.
Zeffirelli almost fell out because that was his main thing, these brass pipes.
A gentleman walked across the stage. What are you doing?
I said, listen, I'm busy here. I don't know who you are, but I'm trying to make this production work. We got some wacko designer that designed too much, and I have to make it work. Get off the stage.
If you said, as I've been told, who's that wacko designer, if you said that he was in a special way very, very close to reality, because I was experimenting.
And the following morning, Mr. Bing called me into the office, and there was this man I threw off the stage. And he said, Mr. Volpe, he said, I'd like to formally introduce you to Mr. Zeffirelli.
And it was under these circumstances that I met for the first time that gentleman called Joe Volpe, who was a gentleman, at the time was not certainly a gentleman, was a good, hard worker. Now he's become, with age and glory and success, he's become a very top figure that everybody respects and loves.
If you're the general manager of the Met, you need to accept the fact that this responsibility is the focus of your life. Your life revolves around the Met.
I was so happy to have a general manager who knows what's on stage, what happens there, and all the sorrows and the difficulties of stage he had in his little finger, as we say.
It was great for me when Joe became the general manager because his idea of this job, and I mean, it's really, really a difficult job. Very few people could do it at all, let alone do it well. Joe's idea of it was the old professional idea, responsible for everything, the buck stops there.
It is very complicated when you are a general manager of an opera house. It's as important what is happening artistically and what is happening the physical way, what is happening on discipline, what is happening in every corner, in every other thing.
This is a very close company, Metropolitan Opera. Very close in terms of how we all feel about each other and how we work with each other. And I think that comes a lot from Joe.
I'm seeing very kind person and very helpful. Of course, he's strong and he has to be tough, but besides that, I think he loves the artists who are working in his theater.
You would knock on the door very gently, and I'd hear your voice, Teresa, and yes, are you ready? And I would say no, and you'd walk me to the stage, and just before I went out on the stage, you would give me a slight embrace on the shoulders, and then I'd be on my way. And you'd stand there, and you would watch the beginning of the opera. From there, I always knew you were there.
In addition to the skills, the knowledge, the talent that an artist needs, an artist is very reliant on confidence. Without the confidence, you can't breathe, you can't concentrate, and it's very important psychologically for the head of the house to be able to do this contact with artists that is giving them a sense of support. And Joe is exceptionally good at that.
If we needed anything important enough to go to him, we would go to him and he would settle whatever it was.
In 1980, we had, of course, that lockout strike, and we were out for 9 weeks, and morale really bottomed out at that point. That's when Joe came on board. He had been chief of labor operations, and many of us wondered, what are we going to be in for? You might think we're just a bunch of music boxes. You wind us up and we play. Instead, though, he turned out to be probably the most sensitive, perceptive, and sympathetic individual we had ever dealt with.
He speaks about the family of artists here, orchestra, chorus. Then you feel that this is a man with a heart, this is a man with a devotion.
I've seen his eyes full of tears, of emotion. A tough man like him became sometimes really like a child contemplating his first drawing.
Which character in the opera? I wasn't prepared for that. I think Surprisingly, I would give Joe a rather lyrical part.
He could be as impressive as it could be the entrance of Scarpia, you know, in Tosca, just making his big statement, un tal baccano in chiesa. What is going on here?
He's too kind to be Scarpia. He would have written out the Passaporte and not had him shot, Cavaradossi.
He tends to sing
a lot. Any kind of music.
Sings in the morning very loudly.
Very loudly.
The other one that came to mind was Wotan. Of course, he's the king of the gods, all-powerful. I think Joe understands the power that he has, and I think he understands that there has to be fairness and there has to be integrity in the way that he deals with people.
A good, solid baritone who holds together difficult situations and triumphs, making a bit of a sacrifice of himself.
He always had the character to be able to web things, to put things together, to be able to calm things down, or vice versa.
Joe Volpe made history by being a carpenter, not coming from a blue blood family, and then becoming the head of Metropolitan Opera Company. He's a first. He made history.
We all thank you so much for having guided the Met through your years of true devotion. Mr. Volpe, we love you.
Here for the first time this evening is conductor James Conlon. And baritone Thomas Hampson with an aria from Korngold's Die Tote Stadt, the City of the Dead.